Welcome to best Y.O.U year ever. Let me screen share. Okay, so can we see my little okay, can we see my screen? All right, great. Okay, so welcome to the best Y.O. Youth of Unity year ever. I'm Betsy. I was in Y.O.U, also in the ancient 90s, some part of the 80s. Yeah, anyway, woohoo. So this was, to me, this was something we started every year with, and it's not something I'm seeing as much now, so I wanted to bring it back. So we want to first for the best Y.O.U year ever, you're going to gather your chapter and you're going to start with a vision. How awesome can this year be? So that's like step one. All right. And then we have a bunch of other steps. So first you want to figure out what you want to do. Now, because I do come from from a long time ago, the first thing that we would always figure out was, okay, who's going to what was called conference and now is called the IYOU event in July at Unity Village. So we have to fly and come to Kansas City. So that's the first thing you want to figure out. Next, your regional events. Your region might have any version of a spring, a fall, or a summer weekend event. So those are some things. And then the whole section about local events, but you want to look at it through first, though, the idea of the four S's is social, service, spiritual, and skills. So how are the events that you want to have for your chapter, for your church, in those categories? And then lock-ins, I feel like a good overnight event is wonderful. And then how do you want your Sunday lesson to feel and look? And then you want to hold space for growth. It's always a great time to involve your congregation. Hey, how can we pray here? How can we hold space here? And letting them know that, like, hey, if you know teenagers, because other people might, it would be great if they could hold that space. So then our next phase is you want to write all of this out. What do we want to do this year? Want to use a calendar? So kind of get a bunch of ideas out and then get the big pieces on first. This is a lot, but let's put this into practice. Step one, get a big old calendar for the year, and then we put the big things in it. So the first big thing is the IYOU event sometime in July. So we got that in red. Okay, and then the next thing are examples of regional kind of events. Obviously, so this would be kind of maybe a spring rally. This is a summer event. This is a spring event. So again, depending on your region is when or if you have these kind of events. But knowing, okay, these are the sorts of things that we would like to do. And again, the four S's for your local group. So to think about like everything in Y.O.U in some ways fits in these four S's. Spiritual, like our Sunday service. Service, like service work. Social, because it seems like you'd want to skip that, but if you really, it's great to be hanging out with your Y.O.U friends. And of course, we're always building skills. And sometimes we're looking at very specific ones. All right. And so we're continuing. So here is a local chapter event idea list. I always start with lock-ins. A good overnight event is great. If you have officers, which is, again, kind of a blast from the past, but assigned roles for the teens that are there. That's a great way to connect everybody for everyone, maybe other local groups or even regional groups. And oftentimes what I remember in my chapter was we would have Sunday morning, like maybe like I was in a couple different chapters in my Y.O.U, but like maybe a breakfast burritos. I definitely remember doing that as a fundraiser. So we'd have a lock-in the night before, and then we get up early to make all the food to sell. Because breakfast burritos, we'd actually send people into the congregation with. Anyway, yeah, so social events, roller skating, big event center like Dave and Buster's, swimming, fun things. If you think it's fun, you're probably correct. All right, service. You can do service to the church, the building, or to the people. I was actually talking about how when I was in Y.O.U, I thought it was odd at the time, but we did a service project where we wrapped everybody's Christmas gifts. Anyway, everybody brought their Christmas gifts. We bought a bunch of wrapping paper. And of course, people gave donations. Anyway, spiritual or you can attend or host spiritual events as a group. Obviously, this is a great place to look at your Sunday service. And then skills. Everything we do builds skills. But what skills do we want to grow and what would we want to do? All right, so some local ideas. And then honestly, anything that you think is fun. That's super duper important, actually. So with your group, with newbies, with the church, what are cool stuff that you would want to do? Because the better church experience you have, the more likely you're going to want to do, it all builds on each other. So okay, so here we go. So for each of these big events, remember we were talking first about you get the big pieces together. You want to first figure out who's going, which Y.O.Uers, which sponsors, and do we need more of them? Oftentimes you realize like, okay, so how many Y.O.Uers do we have going? Awesome, 10. How many sponsors? Wait, we can't just send one adult. So, do we need more of them? And then always we're holding space for more people because, the more the merrier. All right, so do math, which we kind of break down in a bit. How much does the event cost per person? Think of all the expenses. And, getting there, registration, your travel, food. How much do we need to fundraise? And also bring up the idea of what kind of split do we have? Oftentimes, churches have some version of the parents pay a percentage, you fundraise for a percentage. Sometimes the church pays a percentage, maybe not as much now, but again, what kind of split do you have? And fundraisers. You want to plan enough fundraisers for the amount of money we get to fundraisers in a bit. First off, let's start with math. All right, so these are all like complete guesstimates. I really don't know what I'm talking about, but like just bear with me. So I don't know what a regional lock-in costs right now, but let's just pretend my numbers are correct. So for a regional lock-in, you have per person, maybe it's a $50 lock-in fee. Maybe you're paying $20 in gas. It's $5 in food. So for one person, $75. If you have two Y.O.Uers and two sponsors, that's, four people at $75, $300. So again, I have kind of gone through and like completely made up numbers. But the point is that even if like, okay, this number looks really, really big, and it is, it's also like figuring out what you want to do in the beginning, figuring out how much all of that really costs, and facing that means that like if it ends up being more, you're way more prepared. Plus, you have an awesome year coming in towards you, which gets me excited. So that is the math phase. All right. So a non-exhaustive fundraiser list. First, talking about food and cooking, bake sales, breakfast burrito, pasta dinner. Okay. Community based, like, are you, doing things in your community? Event gigs, stadium sales, yeah, raffles, labor sales. What do I mean? I definitely remember when I was in Y.O.U, because we were all a bunch of strapping young kids. So like we offered services like leaf raking to the congregation who would overpay for our services because they loved us. Anyway, yeah, technology help. All of these things, great options. All right, so now I have a section called lots of work before, big payout after. Now, there's a lot of work before with all four of these. First, we're going to start with Southwest, a special car wash-a-thon. You get pledges per car of money per car. Back in the day, we used to do like 20 cents per car. So then your second step, so you do a whole pledge system. Sometimes people will just offer you money like, okay, well, here's $20 for this car wash, regardless of how many cars you get. So then you offer a free car wash. But with a free car wash, people will still give you money for the car wash. Then you collect the pledges. Feels like a racket, but whatever. Anyway, yeah. That's first one. Actually, this one is from Dina, where you auction cakes made by the congregation for something called a cakewalk. Sounds incredible. Guardian Angel, I've seen people raise thousands of dollars with this. You ask for larger donations from the congregation. I've heard of starting at like 100 to 200, like you have a couple tiers. So maybe like bronze, silver, gold, platinum. Yeah, anyway. And those each have, 100, 200, $500. And then this was at Unity of Atlanta that I've seen other churches do it though. And you have a whole wall where you acknowledge all the people that have given you money. And during the year, you're gonna send birthday cards, maybe anniversary cards, and at the end, they would host a pasta dinner for all of the angels and show them like, hey, here's a slideshow, so you can see all of the cool stuff we've done with your money this year, and maybe you can give us more money next year. And of course, a yard sale. Whoo! This is, I feel like the Livingstons, but other churches have certainly done this. A yard sale with donations from people from your congregation or collecting items from old yard sales, and you get your Y.O.Ers to help run the event. That seems like one with a lot of stuff, but it has also been very successful. Okay, so putting it into practice. Here we are with our step two. So we're adding the next pieces. Remember, we already have this red event, Y.O.U, and then the purple event, spring and summer. And now we're gonna add green, some fundraisers, some local events, and some black stuff, which is in this particular thing, like events with your local church and congregation. Think like Christmas. Okay, so all right, first it's those events, and now what I really did in looking at this was here we have like a regional event, so 2 months in advance, here we have a fundraiser. I really only put one local event, but obviously you might have one thing a month. But the local event is right beside our fundraiser on Sunday. How nice. So again, fundraisers, you're gonna be going to like bigger events, you're gonna have to do more fundraisers. I have a bunch of stuff going on here in Christmas, but different periods of time. Yeah, so this calendar is just a suggestion. But I will say, looking at the whole year, number one, to get you really excited for all the cool stuff you're gonna do. It doesn't mean you can't add other pieces, but it does like kind of give you a sense of like, wow, what a year we can have. All right, and so thank you for coming to the best Y.O.U year ever. Any questions? All right. Well, with that, I believe I will
Yeah,
turn
maybe
back
stop
over.
your screen share and let's let everyone think a minute about questions. I would love to hear if anyone has other things that they have done beyond this. Like, first of all, wasn't that awesome? Thank you, Betsy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that would make for a super awesome year. And yeah, so does anyone have any questions or anything else that they would like to add? Since we have the
Can I add
mind.
something?
Yeah.
One thing I do with my chapters, I do during the school year when they're not on vacations and stuff, I do a once a month movie night where I provide the pizza and we rent a movie and we all vote on the movie in advance. My group likes scary movies. But so I do that once a month when I can, when it's not crazy busy. Like Christmas time, I don't do it, but I do that. I also do a white elephant gift exchange game with my teens, which they love. And you can we have a $20 maximum amount, so like no more than $20, but doesn't have to be $20. And we wrap it and we do a game where you can steal it from each other. This year, my teens have voted that they want it to be like actual white elephant, like gifts from thrift stores. So that's cool. Um, one's sorry, I'm just talking really quick. That's it for now. That's it for now. I can talk too much, so that's it for now.
Oh, that's great, Barbara. Thanks. Thanks for that. Anyone else?
I could say that in Albuquerque, in addition to our massive yard sale, we had a lot of good luck with after church doing taco Sundays. So it'd be just like the breakfast burritos, only taco Sundays, and they would come into the, of course, the area where we do all of our
Community.
fellowship afterwards. I couldn't think
Fellowship.
about fellowship and wildly overpay. Some people would pay and not even eat. And then we instigated a round up. So we would put it at an odd amount and we would just ask people, you want to round that up? So if it was like $4 and they just give you $5, always before they gave change. And we got a lot of extra fundraising just asking people, do you want to just donate the change?
Yeah. And then also, as far as what was I gonna say? I had something really good. Anyway, maybe
It's
it'll come
coming.
back. It's coming. Yeah, about fundraiser. Oh, when you have an amount, it's really, people get really on board with helping you meet that. So we had a situation one time where it was the very first rally we ever did, and how it was working out, there wasn't as many people registered, and we didn't actually have enough money for t-shirts. And so we had this crazy bake sale, which we didn't buy stuff at the stores. We actually got all together at someone's house, and we were making chocolate covered strawberries and all the things. And we knew down to the penny exactly what we needed. And someone stood up in the congregation and said, "How much do you need?" And then Mark said something like $527.13. And people were handing us checks for like $100. That wouldn't have happened if we didn't have that in our mind of like, just like you were saying, Betsy, you have your amounts. I thought this is brilliant, your amounts that you're needing, and then you're having your fundraising. So it's not going to be like, oh, bummer, people can't go to Y.O.U. Someone wanted to, but we didn't end up fundraising enough. But since you would have your intention and know exactly what you had. So
Yeah.
that's
So I'd like to, we're talking a lot here in Kansas City, but acknowledge you that, we just went through a particular leadership class together, but you really took the business sense of Stephen Covey's, first things first, and then put a spiritual vision onto it to where this is the spiritual activity we want to do, but first we need to know how many are going, where we're going, and what we're paying for.
And thanks, Tavion, for being here. Thanks
Yes.
all. You made it. This is the end. We just have our next. So whoever our closing, Dina, going to talk about our next event. And I do believe Betsy has a link to put in the chat for Chapter X. There she is. She's right on it in case there is a donation you would like to give to continue the work. We're linked in with Chapter X, so they are going to be going on like right quick. Yes, Betsy?
I was just gonna share stuff here if anyone wanted to see, but really we're starting September 8th and we're gonna do the 5 principles. I think that's probably enough of announcement, and we'll send everyone here an invite, and that'll be that.
Cool. That's great. And Dina, so you
Okay.
can announce
So
the next.
Betsy,
Yes, go ahead.
now Betsy, did you mean there's not a Chapter X today?
No, there's not a Chapter X today. We're starting September 8th.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here because I learned something and I hope everybody else did too. I really enjoyed it and I hope you come back and see us October 20th for the next edition, which will be the Wings Harvest version. And we don't know exactly what that is yet, but we'll tell you when we know, and we'll invite all of you back. That said, I'd really appreciate it if you'd like to pray out with me. And just take a minute, get comfortable. Close your eyes if you do desire. I'm going to say thank you, God, for this coming together to learn together, to experience this process. to benefit from each other's wisdom and experience, and to take this joy and education out into the world with us so we can bring it back on another day for another learning. And I thank God for all of the things that went into this to bring it to what it is. Amen.
Thank you, Dina.
Yes, thank you, Dina. Awesome work, everyone.